in an act nobody imagined would occur. King Charles appeared live and publicly denounced Prime Minister Keir Starmer before the entire country. Within moments, the administration crumbled into complete disorder. Ministers began quitting, Parliament erupted, and for the first time in 3 centuries, a monarch openly confronted a sitting head of government. This was no longer merely a scandal, it had become a full-scale constitutional meltdown that could redefine Britain's future forever. If last week felt explosive, tonight's events pushed the crisis to a level beyond prediction. It started with an unscheduled royal address. Exactly at 9 p.m., Buckingham Palace seized control of every major television and radio station in the United Kingdom. The BBC cut mid-broadcast. ITV and Sky News were forced to change feeds, and suddenly millions were staring at Charles seated at his desk inside Buckingham Palace. His expression was severe, his tone steady but sharpened with steel. For over 7 decades, no sovereign had ever delivered an emergency address outside times of war, catastrophe, or mourning. What Charles chose to do this evening went far beyond precedent. It shattered it. The king spoke directly to citizens, declaring he could no longer remain silent after what he described as a direct attack on the crown and the very pillars of Britain's democracy. His remarks landed like thunder across the nation for the first time in living memory. A ruler had stepped out from the shadows of neutrality into the battlefield of politics. He declared, and I quote, "The people of this land deserve leadership rooted in respect, stability, and duty. When that duty is cast aside, when the sacred bond between Parliament and Crown is broken, it is not only my right but my obligation to speak. This role I hold is not a costume, not an antique, it is the heart of the nation, and I will not stand idle while it is mocked and torn down." Those words altered everything instantly. Newsrooms gasped. Social media exploded in disbelief. Even hardened political journalists confessed to chills within minutes. Hashtags like King vs PM, Crown Collapse, and Starmer Out were trending globally. Yet the most shocking moment arrived with the king's closing line. After a long pause, he stared directly into the camera and declared, "This government no longer holds my confidence. It has lost the trust of the people, and therefore forfeited the right to govern." Never in modern times has a monarch spoken such language about a prime minister. Charles had not only condemned Keir Starmer, he had effectively detonated the entire administration. The fallout was swift and devastating. Within seconds of the speech echoing across the airwaves, Westminster descended into bedlam. MPs scrambled for phones. Journalists raced through corridors, and Labour's government began collapsing in real time. The Speaker suspended Parliament after opposition benches erupted in cheers while Labour MPs sat frozen in shock. Veteran Conservatives clapped in open breach of protocol, while Reform UK members brandished constitutions and shouted "Resign, resign" across the chamber. It was chaos unseen in modern British politics. Inside Downing Street, witnesses described scenes of pure collapse. Senior aides rushed into Starmer's office where he had just watched the royal broadcast live. According to one insider, he was pale, trembling with fury, muttering under his breath, "He's finished me, the king's finished me." Cabinet members, already uneasy with his leadership, wasted no time to act. Within the first hour of the address, 3 senior ministers, Transport Secretary Louise Hay, Health Secretary Wes Streeting, and Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy, announced their departures. Each issued nearly identical statements. "The Prime Minister no longer commands the nation's confidence. I cannot in good conscience remain in this administration." That phrase, "no longer commands the confidence," directly echoed the king's words, making clear where their loyalty lay. But it did not end there. By midnight, over a dozen junior ministers had also resigned, hollowing out the cabinet. The Treasury, Home Office, and Education Department were left rudderless as civil servants scrambled to maintain basic functions. Journalists camped outside reported ministers leaving silently, faces grim, refusing to answer shouted questions. It resembled not a functioning government but the slow-motion collapse of a regime. Online, images spread virally, car doors slamming, resignation letters flashing across tickers, and a beleaguered prime minister trapped inside number 10. One political correspondent summed it up: "We are watching a live implosion of power. History is unfolding before our eyes." Meanwhile, the opposition wasted no time exploiting the moment. Conservative leader Kemi Badana spoke to cameras within 15 minutes of the broadcast. Her words were sharp, calculated, devastating. "The Prime Minister has lost the confidence of the King, of Parliament, and of the people. He must do the honourable thing and step down at once." Nigel Farage was harsher still. Surrounded by jubilant Reform UK supporters waving Union Jacks, he declared, "Tonight the King stood for Britain. Starmer stood against it. The choice is clear: crown and country, or chaos and collapse." The message resonated with force. Labour had waged war on tradition. Now tradition was striking back. Inside the party, knives were drawn. The WhatsApp group, once titled Damage Control, was being called Succession Planning. Leaks showed senior Labour figures openly debating who might replace Starmer before dawn. Angela Rayner's name topped every list, followed by David Lammy, unusually silent during the storm. Even Ed Miliband, long dismissed as a relic, was whispered about as a safe interim choice. Diane Abbott captured the mood with a blunt note to colleagues. "It's over. He's finished. The only question is how quickly we move before the party sinks with him." Yet the night's most extraordinary twist came not from Labour or opposition, but from the palace itself. A senior aide speaking anonymously to Sky News revealed that Charles's decision to go live had been concealed from most courtiers until the last moment. Only his closest advisors and Queen Camilla had known. The king felt compelled, the aide explained. He believes his duty to the nation outweighs protocol. He is ready to carry this as far as required. That statement shook the establishment. Was the king preparing to intervene directly in governance? Was this a return to days when monarchs wielded actual power? For centuries, Britain's constitutional monarchy balanced on neutrality. Tonight, that balance collapsed. By early morning, Downing Street was surrounded not by demonstrators but by reporters, cameras, and opposition MPs demanding Starmer's head. As dawn broke over London, the scene outside No 10 resembled less the seat of government than the headquarters of a regime on the brink. Journalists described a constant flow of aides holding boxes, laptops, and hastily packed belongings. Security officers looked tense, as though they too sensed power slipping away by the minute. Inside the cabinet room, Starmer was reportedly holding what staff called a war council. Leaks suggested the Prime Minister barricaded with his shrinking circle, insisting he would not be ousted by what he termed a monarch's coup. Witnesses claimed he pounded the table, repeating, "No king removes a prime minister. Now, not ever." His voice hoarse, his temper frayed. His resolve unbroken. He believed if he endured the immediate storm, Labour MPs would rally against royal interference. But the problem was obvious. Those MPs were no longer with him. By mid-morning, Labour's parliamentary party had begun openly splintering. Over 60 MPs signed a motion demanding his resignation, calling his leadership untenable. What distinguished this revolt was speed. Normally, rebellions take days, sometimes weeks to grow. This one spread like wildfire. Each hour brought new defections, resignation letters, and statements from MPs who days earlier had backed him. Even close allies were publicly silent, a silence that screamed volumes. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor and once considered his most loyal supporter, was nowhere to be found. When reporters tracked her to her constituency office, her only comment was, "I'm reflecting on last night's events." That line alone rattled financial markets. Already in freefall. The pound dropped 3% overnight. The FTSE 100 plunged at the opening bell, and investors panicked about a leadership vacuum. The opposition, smelling blood, pressed harder. Kemi Badenoch announced Conservatives would table an immediate vote of no confidence in the government. Nigel Farage, never one to miss centre stage, announced that Reform UK would back the motion, calling it the last nail in Starmer's coffin. Suddenly, the arithmetic in Parliament collapsed. Without loyalty from his own MPs, Starmer could not withstand the vote. The calculation was merciless, and everyone in Westminster understood it. The Prime Minister's authority had not merely been eroded, it had been obliterated. Yet rather than preparing to step aside, insiders revealed Starmer doubled down. He instructed his remaining aides to draft a nationwide address, one portraying himself as the guardian of parliamentary sovereignty against what he branded as an unelected monarch intruding in politics. He intended to depict the king's intervention as reckless, undemocratic, even unconstitutional. According to one staffer, Starmer was overheard muttering, "If I fall, he falls with me." That address, however, never reached the cameras. Moments before Starmer was due to speak, turmoil broke out inside Number 10 itself. Senior Labour figures including Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner and Home Secretary Yvette Cooper burst into the cabinet room to confront him directly. What followed has already passed into political folklore. Multiple accounts agree, Rayner told the Prime Minister bluntly. "It's over, Keir. The King has spoken, the country has spoken, and the party has spoken. If you refuse to resign, we will remove you ourselves." Starmer reportedly shouted back, calling them traitors and accusing them of betraying the Labour movement. But the tide had clearly turned. The shouting ended with one chilling line from Yvette Cooper: "If you try to fight this, you'll bring the whole party down with you. Step aside now or history will remember you as the man who destroyed Labour." The silence that followed was said to be suffocating. Meanwhile, outside on London's streets, the crisis was no longer confined to Westminster. Protesters gathered in their thousands, some waving Union Jacks and chanting "Defend the Crown," others holding placards reading "Democracy, not monarchy." It was an image of a nation dividing in two, live on camera. Police were deployed around Westminster as tensions rose. Amid fears the constitutional clash at the top could ignite something far uglier on the ground, social media fled with footage of skirmishes between royalist demonstrators and enraged Labour backers. By mid-afternoon, Westminster looked like a battlefield. Television crews broadcast live from College Green as MPs streamed in and out of frantic meetings, faces grim and unreadable. The countdown to Labour's emergency leadership ballot ticked like a doomsday clock, each minute bringing fresh leaks from behind closed doors. According to party insiders, the vast majority of MPs had already concluded Starmer's time was finished. The only uncertainty was whether he would leave quietly or face public humiliation. Inside Number 10, the tension was unbearable. Starmer's inner circle had shrunk to barely a handful of aides, many frantically drafting resignation letters of their own. Phones buzzed non-stop with grim updates from Parliament. MPs who once pledged loyalty were now openly conspiring against him. Starmer, however, remained unyielding. Witnesses described him pacing like a caged animal, muttering that history would vindicate him. "This isn't about me," he snapped at one advisor. "This is about stopping a king from dictating to Parliament. If I resign now, the monarchy wins and they'll never stop interfering again." To his supporters, it was the language of conviction. To his critics, delusion from a leader already doomed as the turmoil deepened. Labour's deputy leader Angela Rayner took a decisive step. In a leaked message to colleagues, she insisted the vote would proceed despite Starmer's objections. "We cannot let one man's pride destroy the Labour Party," she wrote. "The country needs stability, and he cannot provide it." That message flashed across news outlets within minutes, sparking a frenzy of commentary. The question was no longer whether Starmer would fall, but who would replace him. Betting markets erupted with speculation, with Rayner, Lamy, and Reeves topping the lists. The extraordinary element was the speed this was not playing out over months or even weeks. Britain was witnessing the political execution of a prime minister in a matter of hours. Meanwhile, pressure mounted from outside Westminster. Buckingham Palace, still maintaining strategic silence, became the center of a media siege. Crowds assembled at the gates, chanting in support of the king. Placards read "Stand with Charles" and "The Crown protects Britain." But not everyone cheered. Smaller groups of Labour loyalists clashed with police, accusing the monarchy of engineering a soft coup. The atmosphere was electric, volatile, dangerous. Commentators warned that if Starmer resisted, the crisis could spiral into something darker, a showdown not only between Crown and Prime Minister, but between rival factions of the public itself. International reaction only intensified the pressure. The White House issued a carefully phrased statement urging calm and respect for constitutional order. European leaders voiced alarm that Britain, long regarded as a beacon of stability, was now unraveling in front of the world in Canberra. Australian MPs debated whether the turmoil proved the monarchy had become a dangerous relic. In Canada, politicians argued over whether Charles's intervention had undermined democracy across the Commonwealth. Britain's turmoil was no longer domestic, it was global and humiliating. Back in Westminster, pressure spiked when rumours spread that Starmer planned to call an emergency general election. According to senior figures, he believed if Labour MPs tried to oust him, he could appeal directly to the people, presenting himself as a defender of democracy against royal interference. "Let the people decide," he reportedly told aides, but such a gamble was viewed as political suicide. Polls, already catastrophic, showed Labour's support collapsing. An election now would not only destroy Starmer but hand victory to his rivals on a silver platter. Still, those close to him said he was fixated on the idea, convinced it was his only escape. One senior advisor described him as a man ready to burn the house down rather than walk away. As evening fell, the palace finally broke its silence since the bombshell broadcast. A short statement appeared not from the king himself, but from his senior private secretary. It read, "His Majesty has addressed this matter with the seriousness it demands. He will not issue further comment. The duty of government lies with Parliament, and Parliament must now act." Brief, deliberate, devastating. The king signaled that the next step was not his to take, it was Parliament's, and that left Keir Starmer cornered. The monarch had fired the opening shot, the public had chosen sides, and now the final judgment rested with his own MP.